The video you're about to see was edited from High 8, taken on site by amateur photographers. Its purpose is to provide the viewer with as much information as possible about the Falmouth Cutter, and not to sway you with breathtaking photography. Welcome to the most beautiful 22-foot sailboat in the world. This comment was taken from Ferrant Matte's book, The World's Best Sailboats. The Falmouth Cutter was designed by Lyle C. Hess, the designer of Len and Larry Pardee's famous Seraphim and more recent Tellison, as well as the reputable Bristol Channel Cutter. Lyle always had an emotional attachment to the lovely lines of the British punt boats. For years he visited used bookstores and the library, gathering as much information as he could about these boats. The punts were famous for their turn of speed and ability to handle heavy weather, common in the waters around England. However, they didn't have a good reputation for pointing as high as Lyle preferred. So one of the many modifications he made to these punt designs was to replace the full-length keel with a swept-back one. He widened the foot so lead ballast could be set in the center of the boat instead of the full length of the keel. This also prevented hobby horsing. Lyle designed the Falmouth Cutter with a wide 8-foot beam, which increases her form stability, and a 3-foot 6-inch draft so she can sail into otherwise inaccessible waters. With her bowsprit and the boomkin, this 7,400-pound medium displacement boat is 30 feet 6 inches overall and carries a remarkable 403 square feet of working sails if equipped with roller furling. It's no wonder she sails well in any wind conditions. The Falmouth Cutter, like the more famous Bristol Channel Cutter, are both handcrafted to the highest standards at the Sam L Morse Co. The Falmouth Cutter hull has a wide in-turning flange on which to set the deck, and it adds rigidity to the shear. This requires a 2-part mold that can be separated for removal of the piece after it cures. First, the hull mold halves are waxed and masked, where the boot stripe and the shear stripe colors will contrast with a hull gel coat color. Both molds are then gel coated. Normally the color is ivory or white, but other colors are available as an option. After the whole gel coat cures, the masking tape is removed and the contrasting shear and boot color gel coat is applied. Again, there are many colors to choose from. This is followed by a black gel coat that prevents the light from showing through the nearly transparent fiberglass hull. But most importantly, it makes it easier to see the air bubbles that must be removed during the layup. After gel coating is complete, a skin coat of Hydrex vinyl ester resin is hand applied to 3.5-ounce mat and 24-ounce roving, then squeegeed to remove any air bubbles. This will prevent any future osmosis problems. The 2 mold halves are then assembled in many layers of hand-laid mat and roving that will result with a remarkable thick, solid fiberglass hull. No cores are used to make her lighter. After the hull has cured, 1/2 of the 2-part mold is separated, revealing the sweeping lines of her swept-back keel. The hull is carefully removed from the remaining half of the mold and set into its working cradle and leveled. The 2,500 pounds of solid lead ballast is precast to fit the hull cavity. While the hull layup is fresh, the solid lead ballast is set into the hull cavity at the pre-marked position. A dam is bonded to the hull at the aft end of the ballast to hold the resins that will encapsulate the lead. 5 gallons of resin is now poured into this cavity. Before the resin cures, lead shot is added to bring the ballast up to the exact weight required. The cast lead ballast always comes a little underweight because it is easier to add the shot than to remove any excess. Now the remainder of the ballast cavity is filled with resin to the top of the dam. This will cover the lead ballast by about 1 inch. Since the ballast is a critical part of the boat, we want to make certain that it will never cause any future problems, even in a severe grounding or capsize. So its encapsulation is further strengthened by bonding over it with multiple layers of 3.5 ounce mat and 24 ounce roving. First, the ballast and hull sides are rough sanded, cleaned with acetone, then wetted with resin. The mat is then applied and saturated with more resin. Over all this, the roving is applied. All air bubbles and excess resin is removed by hand. The combination of mat and roving provides the strongest bond as long as all excess resin and the air bubbles are removed. This procedure is repeated 3 times. This all takes considerable time because it is all done by hand. This timely procedure results in a ballast installation that will never be exposed to moisture and will last the lifetime of the boat without any maintenance or concerns to her owner. After the ballast encapsulation cures, the roughed-in interior begins. Bulkheads are essential for thwartship's strength. It reinforces the hull shape and helps prevent hull movement. They should be located equally spaced along the hull. The most important bulkhead is the one located where the mast is installed, because here there is extreme inward pressure. As the mast is put into compression by the rigging and the natural forces of the wind, the sides of the hull and the chain plates tend to pull inward to reduce this stress. This bulkhead prevents it from happening. There should be bulkheads forward and aft to absorb the pressures of the seas. The more bulkheads, the stronger the boat. However, to be most effective, they must be bonded 360 degrees, that is to the hull as well as the underside of the deck. Since these bulkheads are structural members to the boat and will be absorbing the constant pressures and poundings of the seas over the years, a hard spot may occur on the hull where the bulkhead and hull meet. This could eventually cause fatigue. To prevent this from occurring, a foam cushion strip is placed between the edge of the bulkhead and the hull. Wide bonding of the bulkhead to the hull further distributes this load point. After the bulkheads are in position, they are temporarily bonded in place. This is followed by full bonding on both sides. Another structural part of the boat is the cabin sole. Properly installed, it will add to the hull's strength both thwartship and longitudinal. First, the structural longitudinal stringers that will support the sole are bonded to the bulkheads and the hull. Then 3/4 inch marine plywood is completely sealed before it is fastened to the stringers and also bonded to the hull. Time and care is taken to ensure that the multiple layers of bonding is hand-laid and excess resin and air bubbles are removed to provide a structurally strong floor for the boat. The water tanks will set under the cabin sole, adding to the ballast weight of the boat. The roughed-in interior continues using teak marine grade plywood. We don't use fiberglass liners because no alterations can be made to the boat's layout. Liners provide little structural strength to the hull because they are difficult to bond on both sides when only the outside is accessible. Also, the bonding has little strength unless the gel coat is ground away, thus destroying its cosmetic finish. Using marine plywood, each piece is hand bonded to the hull on the outside as well as the inside, adding to the remarkable strength of this vessel. It takes time to bond in an interior this way. The Sam L Morse Company is proud of their method and the amount of bonding that they use. They make no attempt to hide it, so it can clearly be seen on all of their boats. As the roughed-in interior nears completion, the Yanmar 9-horse diesel engine and its 15-gallon welded aluminum tank is installed. Some prefer an outboard engine instead of an inboard because it is easier to work on when the boat is not in use or it is sitting on its trailer at home. This would allow more storage space in the engine compartment. With the engine installed, the roughed-in interior continues. The interior cannot be finished until the deck is set in place because all the bulkheads must be bonded to the underside of the deck. This is what the interior would look like in a semi-complete boat. Like the hull, the deck mold is waxed and the non-skid is masked off separate from the cabin. There will be a slight difference in color between the two. After gel coating is completed, 3 layers of 3.5-ounce matte and 24-ounce roving are hand applied. After it cures, the fiberglass is roughened and the marine plywood core is scored and set on a bed of resin-saturated matte. Marine plywood core is used because it has the greatest stiffness and compression qualities of any core material, and it will not absorb moisture like some of the other cores. Admittedly, it is not as light as other materials, but our objective is not lightness but structural strength. This is followed by several more layers of hand-laid matte and roving, concluding with a layer of fiberglass cloth for a smoother interior finish. This will completely seal the core material. After the deck is cured for a few days, it is carefully removed from its mold. It is inspected on both sides. Any repairs are made, and then it is inverted and prepared to set on the 2.5-inch in-turning hull flange. After the deck is set on the hull and it's in register, 1/4-inch holes are drilled through the deck and the hull flange. These holes are staggered every 5 inches around the entire boat. This evenly distributes the pressure across this joint. The deck is then raised and the whole flange and underside of the deck are cleaned of drill dust. Then the deck is set on large quantities of 3M 5200 marine sealant. The deck is then fastened to the hull using 1/4-inch stainless steel bolts with wide washers, lock washers, and nuts. The deck-to-hull joint will last the lifetime of the boat without ever leaking or breaking loose, even in the most severe sea conditions. After the deck is installed, the interior bulkheads are bonded to the underside of the deck using the same bonding materials used when bonding to the hull. Now the skilled ship's carpenters begin the exterior woodwork. First, the Honduras mahogany or teak coverboards are installed around the deck's circumference. It too is set on 3M 5200 marine sealant, and it's screwed through the deck into the hull flange, adding to the remarkable strength of this hull-to-deck joint. This is followed by through bolting the taffrail and quarter knees using 1/2-inch stainless steel bolts and nuts. This is followed by the solid Honduras mahogany or teak bulwarks. Before the interior finish work can begin, the through-hole fitting for the engine water intake must be installed. All through-hole fittings are solid bronze, through-bolted seacocks. Note the thickness of the hull at this location. In the interior, form battens are bonded to the hull and fiberglassed over. These will take the screws that hold the ash sealing strips in place. Half-inch closed cell polyethylene foam insulation will be installed between the battens before the ash sealing strips are attached. This same insulating foam is applied under the cabin roof, under the decks, and against the hull and in all the lockers. We make our own fiberglass panels that simulate tongue and groove wood painted white. This is bonded to all the bulkheads and the overhead. It can be applied to the insides of the cabins and its ends as an option. The water tanks are prepared and installed underneath the cabin sole, adding to the weight amidships and as low as possible. The light color of the white ash sealing strips has a pleasant contrast to the darker teak wood. With the exterior wood complete, the deck hardware is installed. Everything is through bolted with backup plates. All the exterior wood gets its first coat of wood cedar. On this boat, the mast wiring enters through the deck at the mast base. On all future boats, the wiring enters into the deck boxes, which are located on either side of the mast. These deck boxes contain the 2 propane tanks which provide the cooking and heating fuel for the boat. When the woodwork is finished, the boat is moved outside to apply the multiple barrier coats of epoxy to the bottom, which will prevent future problems with osmosis. The boat is now complete. The exterior wood receives its last coat of sealer and final inspection begins. All of the Sam L Morse Company boats have 28-inch high double lifelines with double-walled stainless steel stanchions that are through-bolted for safety and strength. One reason for the eye and heart appeal of Lyle Hess boats is they are often mistaken for wooden boats. Each boat is handcrafted to the particular requirements of its owner. We use only the best woods, and each piece is hand-selected to make sure there's an even color match. As we enter the finished Falmouth Cutter, the pleasant contrast between the white grooved fiberglass panels and the darker teak furniture and trim complements the spacious interior. The quarter berth on port and starboard sides are 28 inches wide and 6 feet 6 inches long, and serve as settees when eating at the slide-out table. The solid bronze 6-inch portholes with screens and the large bronze cowl vents provide ample ventilation in warm climates. The middle step of the ladder is also the end of the pull-out table, which is also the top of the engine cover. If the front engine panel and table are completely removed, there is ample access to service the engine. The completed Sam L Morse boats come standard with quality electronics, which includes depth sounder, knot and speed log, and VHF radio. The carefully thought out galley is set to port across from the ice box on starboard. When cooking, everything is within easy reach without moving. The large ice box is insulated with 3.5 inches of expanding foam. Both fresh and salt water are plumbed to the 9-inch deep stainless steel galley sink. The force tin 2-burner propane stove with oven is gimbaled for use underway. As we move forward, there is a large 36-inch wide, 6-foot 6-inch long single berth to port with a storage locker above. The ash sealing strips hide the insulation and add to the nautical look of this forepeak. The starboard side has an insulated hanging locker lined with aromatic cedar. The wide single berth can be extended to a 55-inch wide double berth by setting the cushion insert on the cleats between the hanging locker and the berth. The head is set slightly to starboard, hidden by the forward cushion. Some owners prefer a porta-potty head and would receive considerable credit off the price. The marine head pumps overboard or into a 9-gallon holding tank, which can be pumped overboard with a wheel gusher hand pump forward or from a pump-out station. Unlike most boats that use thin veneer plywood cabin sole, the Falmouth Cutter uses 1/2 inch solid teak bonded to 3/4 inch marine ply. The boat is finished and has been thoroughly inspected to ensure that everything works and will fit when it's ready to step the mast and take its maiden voyage. The boat may be trucked to your location, or you may choose to launch it locally. The owners of this Falmouth Cutter are English and will be taking their boat back to Dartmouth. But first they want to commission it locally so they can become familiar with the boat and have all of their questions answered. They have selected the commissioning option, which will transport their boat to the launch site, launch it, and go for sea trials.
God bless her and all who sailing her.
Okay.
When the boat goes into the water, all through-hole seacocks must be inspected to make certain there is no water entering the boat. The engine is started and checked that the cooling system is working. She is then moved to the location where the mast will be stepped and friends are waiting to celebrate the launch. This is a special day for this couple. Keith says he has searched the world for the perfect pocket cruiser and has found it in his Falmouth Cutter. If you intend to take the boat home with you, it must be transferred from the working cradle to the optional triaxial trailer. The mast is set into the boom gallows and the mast crutch forward for transport. It should be properly tied down to ensure there is no movement. John and Kay Hoffman told me that he had owned other larger boats and that he has sailed extensively. It took years of research to find the perfect blue water cruiser that they could trailer from coast to coast. As John says it, what a way to go to weather. Now they're preparing to trailer it back to Jackson, Michigan. The 8-foot beam and 3'6" draft keeps the overall height and width within state trailering regulations. Before stepping the mast, all the standing and running rigging must be installed with upper shrouds wired to the end of the spreaders. The removable roller on the boom gallows allows the mast to be lifted forward and walked aft until the pivot hole is aligned with a matching hole on the tabernacle. After the mast is bolted into the tabernacle, all the standing rigging is attached to the chain plates. The head stay and staysail stay will be attached after the mast is upright. The boom will be used as a jockey pole. It is set in the forward gooseneck bracket. The side braces are attached to the boom's end to keep the boom from falling sideways after it is upright. The jib halyard acts as a topping lift supporting the end of the boom. The main sheet on the bottom side of the boom provides a 4-point purchase to help control the mast. The upper shroud has a pivot point in line with the pivot point of the mast. This is where the boom and forward brace is attached. The bail on the underside of the boom takes the double main sheet block. The main sheet is led through another double block attached to the staysail gammon iron. The main sheet rope is led to one of the halyard winches on the mast for raising and lowering. After the mast is upright, connect the head stay. The boom is removed from the front of the mast, followed by the boom brace and the main sheet. The main sheet block remains on the boom bail. The boom is moved around to the aft side of the mast and attached to the gooseneck fitting as normal. All rigging is then adjusted to the pre-marked position. To lower the mast, the boom or jockey pole is assembled as before. The double blocks and main sheet are led to the mast halyard winch where tension is put on the line. Then the head stay can be disconnected. To begin lowering the mast, it is necessary to put a load on the controlling rope by jerking on the backstay. This is best done by somebody else. The mast is lowered slowly, maintaining control at all times. Care must be taken not to kink any shrouds or the backstay during this lowering process. After the mast has been set into the boom gallows and the topping lift and boom ends are slackened, the boom is then lowered into the mast crutch. The boom is removed from the front of the mast and the braces and the main sheets are disconnected. In order to lighten the mast, the accessible rigging should be removed before attempting to move the mast forward onto its mast crutch. The roller is installed over the boom gallows and under the mast. Now the pivot pin can be removed and the mast walked forward until it is centered on the boat. All the remaining rigging should be removed from the mast and lashed down prior to transport. With the mast set in place and all rigging adjusted, it is time for the trial sail. The large sail area on the Falmouth Cutter permits her to scoot along even in the lightest of breezes. As the wind picks up, her speed will increase remarkably. It's not uncommon for the Falmouth Cutter to outsail much larger boats. Sit back and watch how well this little jewel sails in various wind conditions. Thank you for joining us at the Sam L Morse Company. We hope you enjoyed our homemade video and it answered most of your questions. Please call if you have any further inquiries.